Well, good afternoon, wherever, whenever you are live streaming with us or watching with us. I'm excited to be here. I hope that you have something good to drink. I've not said this much, but I am a coffee snob. And so I've got myself if you know what it is, you know what it is. But it's a cortada. And if you don't know what that is, I would challenge you to look it up. Have one the next time you're in a coffee shop. It's basically a 1-to-1, either a double shot of espresso, a double shot of, and then the rest steam milk, 1-to-1, or a single shot, depending on how you want it. So I've got mine. Hopefully, it'll keep me going. And yes, you are absolutely correct, Adrian. I am super excited about this. It will also be available inside of Logos. I have already pre-ordered my copy, which is exciting. I'll have my physical copy, but also I'm most excited about being available inside of Logos. So glad that you saw that. There's a lot of hype around it. This was his kind of deathbed wish that he try to get this additional content out, and I love that people have picked up his goal and mission and carried it on to completion. I do want to, before we get into the meat of today, I've got another book. um, I'm looking here at all the books. Look at this, the stacks of books. Okay, these are books that I suggested early on. I don't think the inductive study was one. I have mentioned these, which most of these are Dr. Heiser's, but also a couple of Revelation. And then I have also mentioned this book, the Book of Enoch. Today, if you want to add to your understanding of the angel of the Lord and how that connects to the Messiah, how it connects to maybe what was called the death angel in the Old Testament. Fabulous book, The Angel of the Lord. It's a biblical, historical, and theological study. It's by Matt Foreman and Doug Van Dorn. I may have mentioned this before. But look at this right here. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't. Maybe. Forward by Michael Heiser. So, fabulous book. This is an exceptional book. I wish it was inside of Logos because it's got a lot of amazing content. And for those of my previous connection to Adventism friends, I don't think you can read this and understand the research, the depth, the knowledge that goes into this and buy into the Adventist view of who the angel of the Lord is and their framework as it connects to Michael the archangel. So, a lot of good stuff. We are diving into Revelation. Good to have you guys here. I do have a couple of additional announcements that I do want to make. If you're following on the subscription for the YouTube channel, you'll know that we are drawing very close to the end of the Sabbath series. In fact, the last episode, episode 16 for that series on my YouTube channel, will drop on Monday. So that is coming out. That will be the final episode. And I am excited to announce that after that particular event, I promised a live Q&A. That is going to happen. I'm excited to announce that we have a live Q&A with EJ Lauriston, the one and only. He has been super kind to join me. This will be April 10. And as a precursor for getting prepped and ready for this, I want everyone to kind of take note of this particular link. I will share my screen in a second and show you what this is. But in case you want to submit a question ahead of time that you would 100% like covered, because we're going to do live Q&A, just pop questions on really anything, but focusing in on Sabbath and law and new covenant theology. I can't promise that we'll be able to get to everyone's question, but I can promise that if you submit the question using this link, it will send you to this landing page here, of which you can complete the question there. It's just a Q&A, and then you will have a spot to a form that you can obviously submit your questions that you want addressed. So if you want to make sure that your question gets answered, we will be covering these first, those that submit them in advance. And then we will cover the additional items that pop up in the Q&A as we move through. It'll probably be about an hour and a half to 2 hour session, so lots of time to work through. You might be asking when. This will be April 10th. That is a Thursday evening starting at 6 o'clock. Now, if you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, which is on the screen here, you already see the notification that it is already scheduled and ready to go. So you can obviously click notify. You'll be notified of when we go live. And obviously, do not forget to submit your questions using this link. All of our future Q&As will be on the same link with a different submission form for your info. So with that being said, let's dive in to, well, let's have prayer first. And then let's dive in to our session today, which I'm really excited about. We're going to keep moving through, chapter 4 in Revelation. We have a lot to cover. I'm hoping we'll get through the next couple of verses, and then we'll be able to, jump into, well, we'll see how far we get. So let's bow our heads and have a quick word of prayer, and then we will get started. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for those that are able to attend live. Thank you for those that will be watching at a later time. I pray that this would always honor and glorify and edify you, edify the body of Christ. I pray for those that are hurting, that are seeking, that they would rest in you, as the book of Hebrews talks about, that we would have faith in the work of Christ and know that we have the assurance of salvation and eternal life. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for this amazing book, John's Apocalypse, Revelation, and may we honor the text by seeking to view what John was talking about through the lens of the Old Testament. Thank you for this time together. We pray all these things in your precious name. Amen. All right, friends. Well, if you don't remember, the last time we exited the conversation actually reading a section out of the unseen realm. Let me see here. It was specifically on, we started getting into the bright morning star, and we're going to talk more about this. This is going to dovetail into our conversation around the elders and kind of further elaborating on that particular concept. So specifically, when we're talking about Revelation, okay, when we get into, this is chapter 4, chapter 5, where you have celestial beings and glorified human beings spoken of in the same way. In this case, authority in the kingdom. Okay, think of the council. We've been spending a lot of time on council theology. Think councils that have authority. Okay, where you blur kind of the deity or divine Jesus with human glorified beings. They're members of the same body with Jesus. And what Dr. Heiser discusses is he says that he'll grant, this is what he believes to be happening in Revelation 3. Okay, Jesus is going to grant to the one who overcomes to sit on his throne with him in Revelation 3. And Jesus will share with them the morning star. Now, remember, this is chapter 2 in Revelation where it talks about the morning star. Again, this is what I would consider its inclusion in the council, and its inclusion also with the authority of that rulership. Okay, both sides start to be blended together. Now, you'll hear me say this later on. This is really the Edenic desire. This is what I believe was originally intended in the Garden of Eden, where both supernatural mingles with human in a way, and they work together. God kind of walked with them, and the Garden of Eden was considered kind of the temple or the place that those two things kind of merged together. So this is the line of thinking that is consistent with the wider Second Temple thought that human believers were glorified when they were being glorified at a future state. They will become members of God's heavenly entourage. Now that is a interesting concept. But I just want you to understand that this is not a new thing for Mike. It's not a new thing even for Dr. Heiser. In fact, Dr. Heiser would say oftentimes that he really didn't have any new thoughts. He was just putting the dots together. Okay. This is the point of theology. This point in theology is well known from Second Temple Jewish sources and literature of Qumran, the Qumran community, especially whose occupants saw themselves as angelic priests. Now, this particular belief is, I would say, is presumed symbiosis between the earthly and heavenly priesthood servants of God, and it may provide a point of connection to the number of elders. And that was the main primary thing that we kind of got us into this conversation. Now, if you look in academic work, some are going to suggest that this is what derives from the 24 priestly courses described in 1 Corinthians 23-24. If you're not familiar with that, I would challenge you to take a look at that. Maybe, and we don't know, but maybe that's where we get the 24 concept. Maybe it's about a heavenly priesthood that are both divine but also earthly. Now, here again, we have this merging going on, this blurring of Old Testament ideas, New Testament concepts coming together. We see this in the Second Temple period. Now, I want you to consider the elements as we go through here, just in case. I want to level the playing field of what we're trying to think here. Okay, just think about the elements of the scene. Revelation 4 and 5, council scene, is based on Daniel 7. We talked about that. There's almost no disagreement in academic and scholarly work that Revelation 4 and 5 is based on Daniel 7, which is a divine council scene in which all authority is given to the Son of Man. Now, do you guys remember? I don't know if you do, but do you remember how Daniel 7 ends? I don't know if you remember how it ends. Let me put this on the screen real quick. So this is Daniel 7, really the last couple of verses, okay? Verse 26, but the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away to be consumed and destroyed to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. So the end of Daniel 7 basically has all the authority is given to this one like the Son of Man figure, the Son of Man. And we know that to be now, looking back, Jesus, okay? Because Jesus is the morning star who shares his authority with human believers, specifically sharing his throne as well. Where do we see that? Well, Revelation chapter 3:21, the one who conquers, I will grant him to sit with me on my throne, as I also conquered and sat down with my Father on his throne. So he means Jesus sets believers over the nations being judged in Revelation 2:26. Let's go there real quick. You remember 2:26. The one who conquers and who keeps my works until the end, to him I will give authority over the nations, and he will rule with a rod of iron as with broken. And again, you get this language, okay? We could even add, I'm just sharing the elements of what's going on, okay? We could add to the description something in Hebrews chapter 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, we'll actually eventually get to that conversation, okay? Let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. So here we have believers are part of this great vast cloud of witnesses, which is language drawn from celestial court imagery directly. And this is fascinating, this is court imagery in ancient covenants. We find that all over the place. Okay, so those believers, quote, have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God. Okay, that's Old Testament. So isn't this, and this is the question I have, isn't this what is being described in the book of Revelation? This is all, again, in John's mind, this is all of these pieces are being pulled together to what? The New Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem. Now, Hebrews 12, if you read Hebrews 12 has believers coming to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, to the heavenly Jerusalem. What does it say? It says in Hebrews 12, here we go, 22 and 23. Notice that, but you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to what? Innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who was enrolled in heaven, and to God and the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect. So they are enrolled in heaven. Those believers will, as Paul says, what does Paul say? 1 Corinthians 6:3. Don't you know you're going to judge angels? So there's this, again, all of these are kind of elements of what's going on. Now, here's the point. Okay, and some of you are probably at this point going, well, why didn't you just say this? Well, here's the point of all this. Now that we've mucked through all of these details and all of these kind of touch points in the Old Testament to provide at least where John would be getting this imagery. Well, the point here is that a choice between glorified humans and celestial agents of the heavenly divine council isn't really necessary. We're talking about the elders. It's not really necessary to pick, is it this one or that one? Why? Because the categories, in my opinion, they overlap. This is the heavenly council. This is what we get. And I think that wherever you decide to land on the 24 elders, who they are, okay, we need to make sure when we're doing that, that we are affirming the divine council idea in terms of the supernatural character of it. Now, this will really make sense once you read through the Unseen Realm. If you do get a chance, and by the way, there's an Unseen Realm documentary. There is, if you go to, I've even mentioned this on my website, on the blog website. There's an entire section dedicated to the divine council. I've mentioned that, I think, before. You can even find on my website, and you can find it on YouTube as well. There is a supernatural conference that was done by Dr. Heiser. All of those will give you kind of further insight into this divine council idea. But I don't think we should divorce this divine council idea from what John is talking about. Here's what I mean. The humans don't squeeze out the divine elements here in the council. Instead, humans are included. It's participatory language. They're included in the council, which, quite frankly, is exactly what God wanted in the Garden of Eden. He wanted Adam and Eve to participate in rulership, to have rule over, to subdue the earth. This is Edenic desires. Now, I do want to address a really fascinating wild card here. Buckle up, as they say. So I want this is going to be an out of left field wild card that I can't not do this because this is actually really fascinating. Okay. What about if you do any reading on the 24 elders, you're going to run into something called the astral interpretation of the 24 elders. And in fact, this was the very first one. Let me get this on the screen. This was the very first reference in Dr. Beale's and G.K. Beale's commentary on the book of Revelation that he brings up. And he says, Babylonian astral deities. Some have thought that the origin of the 24 elders is traceable to Jewish apocalyptic, which itself was indebted ultimately to the Babylonian to the status of angels. Now that guy by the name of Laos. Okay. This is now Beale claims, just for the record, and I'm going to put this bigger screen for you to see. Beale claims that this is unlikely since there is no evidence of 24 orders of angels in Jewish apocalyptic or in the Old Testament, or of the Babylonian mythology being held by pagan religions contemporary with John. The data source for that is there's further study on Beasley Murray, his commentary on Revelation. Even if John unconsciously utilized such a tradition, there are closer parallels in the Old Testament from which he could have drawn. Now, what I do want to this is going to be out of left field, okay? The divine council in the Old Testament is described in very explicit astral language. Very, very explicit astral language. When I say astral, I'm meaning star, okay? Celestial constellation star language. The believers or the glorified believers who are going to join the council are described in explicit astral language. What do I mean? Well, let's look at it. Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. I'm going to make this a little bigger. And those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. This is very explicit. Let's go to Genesis 15:5. And he brought him outside and said, look toward heaven and number the stars. If you are able to number them, then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. This is star language. Now, star language is just how the Old Testament thinks about the divine council. This just is, and it makes sense if you get into their mind. Okay, so the question is, would it really be inconsistent? Okay, Beale doesn't think it would be consistent, but my question to you, because just because a scholar says something doesn't mean, again, we need to check and we need to look at research and we need to cross-reference, right? So the question is, would it really be inconsistent if we also looked at the 24 elders astrally, as astral talk? I think we should look into this. So let's dovetail into this rabbit trail for a second, okay? This perspective lends itself to the same ideas that we've been talking about with regards to the divine council. So in this case, the divine council is made up of supernatural beings and glorified humans. And so the way we kind of telegraph this idea is the astral talk from the Old Testament. Now, I will say this. I'm going to, and you already caught this from Beale, but both David Aune and G.K. Beale are fairly skeptical of this approach. I honestly don't know why. There's no evidence in their writing as to, I mean, they make some connections. Okay. I don't know really why. Maybe they just didn't make the connections yet. I don't know when, let me look here real quick in my, I don't know when Beale's was written. Oh, well, 1999 was Beale. I mean, so it's been 26 years. So maybe just the information isn't there. I'm not sure about David Aune and when his commentary came out. But both of them presume that the imagery must come from some sort of Babylonian zodiac, and that Old Testament correlations to them are more likely. Now, I would just say, wait a minute. Let's just pause, okay? Are they suggesting then, professors, are you guys suggesting that astral imagery in the Old Testament doesn't have a connection to Babylonian stuff? Now, this is why, like, I don't know why they don't make this connection, okay? But if this is what they're saying, then they would definitely be incorrect. Why? Well, Ezekiel 1 will make that point in just a second. Ezekiel 1 is the argument that would disagree with them. Now, as a follow-up, it is true that the zodiacal system, and if you don't know much about the zodiac system, I would, again, just to get you up on par, I would spend some time diving into the zodiac system, and its correlation to Mesopotamia, all that stuff. But it would so zodiacal systems have their origin in Mesopotamia. But all cultures of the Mesopotamian region there, including that of the ancient Israel and the Second Temple Jews, they all utilize the zodiac for observing the celestial sky. So this was a part of just how they dealt with the stars. Okay. Now, there is a good deal of evidence that Jewish astrological beliefs in Second Temple Jewish texts are pretty self-evident. They're there, okay? But let me emphasize something as we get into this. This evidence, just because it's there, should not be interpreted as a concession to heterodox pagan religion. So here's what Dr. Heiser says. Where do we have this? I don't have the quote exactly. He references this, and he's going to make a statement. I'm just going to read his quote. It says, Judaism held to its theological orthodoxy, parsing astronomical phenomena and astrological concepts through a belief in Yahweh as the ruler of the cosmos. And this blend actually gets visible representation by zodiac mosaics in ancient synagogues. That's a direct quote from Dr. Heiser. That is not my concept. That is his quote. Okay, so this might make some of you surprised. You may not know this. Okay, but there are actual zodiac mosaics in ancient Jewish synagogues. And if you want some really, really, really good information, you can Google. I'm actually going to, let me see if I can make this. I'll just share this link with you. I'm going to post it on the comments section. And then I will also, here's a banner that you should have the link here. So this is a link to a doctoral dissertation. If you really want to dig into this, okay, a doctoral dissertation by a gentleman called Lester Ness, Ness. And it was a dissertation in 1990. If you use this direct link, you'll go straight to, this is called Astrology and Judaism in Late Antiquity. If that link, for some reason, if you can't copy the link, all you need to do is Google author Lester Ness, and you can also check out his book. There's a book called Written in the Stars, Ancient Zodiac Mosaics. Written in the Stars, Ancient Zodiac Mosaics. Now, the link that you have on the screen is the dissertation that his book then came from that. Okay, so this is Lester Ness's dissertation from Miami of University of Ohio under Edwin Yamaka, I think is his name, Yamaki, who's an evangelical. You can also use Google Scholar. If you're not familiar with Google Scholar, you can use it, and you can search for Zodiac Mosaics Judaism to find other resources on this astral concept in Judaism. So I'm just giving you the info, because don't take my word for it. Go study it. It's fabulous. Back to my point, though. Okay, why am I bringing this up? Okay, we have clear data, clear evidence that Jews did have zodiacal thinking. They were thinking about the zodiac in their theology. And it didn't steer them away. This is what's key. It didn't steer them away from Orthodox Yahwism. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. So just because they had, they were thinking about the zodiac, that many will say, oh, I can't do that because it has connections back to Mesopotamia and Babylon and all this stuff, that doesn't steer them away from Orthodox Yahwism, because Yahweh was the one who created these objects. He is their master. So it's not, this shouldn't be surprising. Okay. So what Jews and later Christians rejected in terms of astrology stuff is the idea that the objects in the sky could dictate and control individual fate. you'll find very clearly that was theological heresy. That is not something that is accepted. Those things served, okay? Those things in the sky served their creator. They were not above the creator, okay? And who is the creator? Jesus Christ. So that's the reason why later on in both like Messianic Judaism as well as later Christianity, you'll see that those like the ass stuff isn't rejected as heresy, but the concept that those objects in the sky had some sort of control over individual fate, that was deemed as theological heresy. Now, all of this is a setup, okay? This is where we get into the really fun stuff. Like this, I love geeking out on this stuff, okay? There aren't many scholars that have championed this kind of astral zodiac approach, but there is one that we will note. And I want you to take notes on this. Write this down. Bruce Milani. Let me actually copy this and put this in for those of you that want to search this out. Bruce, it's probably Malina, Malina. Bruce was a New Testament scholar specializing in applying the social sciences in New Testament culture and interpretation. Now, Bruce argued for the astral view based on several textual considerations that then parsed according to ancient astronomical and astrological thinking. He even has a commentary. If you want to know about this, he has a commentary. I'm going to share this on my screen. This commentary is called Social Science Commentary on the Book of Revelation. Both Bruce J. Malina and John Pilch. This commentary, he references his dissertation, which is called, and I know that I'm geeking out here for a second. His dissertation is called On the Genre and Message of Revelation, Star Visions and Sky Journeys. So this book is rightly reviewed. Just pay attention. The book itself is rightly reviewed, in my opinion, as negatively. So that there is negative reviews on the book. Not because it isn't good information. The information is good. But the reason it gets a negative review is because Bruce neglects to connect this stuff to Old Testament material. So he does all this research, but he misses like a big mark when it comes to academia. And so, of course, he's going to get some negative reviews. In other words, he sees the astral road, this journey, and get on it and never departs. He never gets off of it. Okay. He never bothers to sort of try to marry it to the Old Testament stuff. He just keeps going. And so you will see some scholars providing some negative thoughts on the book. Don't let that scare you, because the information is really, really interesting. Okay. What Bruce argues for is that he has seen certain figures in Revelation 4 and 5 in the vision, and he pulls those ideas out and then interprets them according to ancient astronomical and astrological thought. Now, let's look at a couple of examples on how this approach would work. All right, if you go to Revelation 4 and 5, okay, the courtroom scene that we're in, the throne in Revelation 4 and 5 is, drum roll, right? Drum roll, please. It's heavenly. Surprise, surprise. Okay. In other words, it's said to be in the heavens. So in Bruce's commentary on this, he's going to look at, okay, Revelation 4, verses 1 and 2. After this, I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice which I had heard speaking to me like a trumpet, and said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this." At once I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven with one seated on the throne. So Revelation 4, 1 and 2 just says that point blank. I mean, it's in heaven. Okay. So for Bruce, for Melina, okay, he would say something like, well, why don't we consider the heavens then? If that's where the vision is situated. So this is his line of thinking on this. Okay. The second kind of thing to bring up. God's throne is situated above the firmament. We know this. If you do any study in the Old Testament, you know this based on Old Testament imagery. And the firmament was conceived of as this solid dome over the earth in ancient cosmology. What are we referring to? Well, Genesis 1, 6, where it clearly says, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters and let it separate the waters from the waters. This, depending on which version, it's a little bit more seeable. Other versions kind of obscure it. But in Genesis 1, 6, you have the waters being separated below it from the waters above it. Okay. Also, Genesis 1, 6. This is the verse to go to kind of formulate the dome. Now, you could also compare this for the cosmology. You could compare it to Proverbs 8, 27 and 28. When he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep, when he made firm the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep. So you get this now. Compare this to Job 37:18. Again, keeping these all in context. I don't want people to think I'm jumping around and proof texting. Compare these texts in their context to the idea of the dome, the firmament, this concept, the ancient cosmology. Okay. Can you, like him, spread out the skies hard as a cast metal mirror? This is very clear imagery, in my opinion, that has this firmament being this solid or hard as brass type of like dome. That's the kind of language we get. Also, in the Old Testament, God walks upon the vault. Yes, he walks upon the vault of heaven. The vault in this is this firmament. He walks on it. Where do we get that? Well, that's Job 22:14. Thick clouds veil him so that he does not see, and he walks on the vault of heaven. Again, this is all helping to see the cosmology of the ancients. Psalms 29:10. It says, the Lord sits enthroned over the flood. The Lord sits enthroned as king forever. In other words, over those waters up there above the firmament. Okay. God builds, what does Amos 9:6 say? He builds his upper chambers in the heavens and founds his vault upon the earth, who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out upon the surface of the earth. The Lord is his name. So the dome, okay, the dome in ancient cosmology rests upon the earth, and God lives above it. Now, when we go to Revelation 4:5, in Revelation 4:5, meteorological phenomena emanates from the throne. This is what Bruce would say. Hey, have you read verse 5? From the throne came flashes of lightning and rumblings and peals of thunder, and became the throne where burning 7 torches of fire, which are the 7 spirits of God. So you get these flashes of lightning, peals of thunder. That's like the sky stuff. This is the way Bruce would understand this. So Milana or Melina, I don't know how to say his name. Okay. Call him Maul. Bruce says, consequently, the sea of glass before the throne and really under the throne is likely, in his understanding, is likely to be understood as this firmament. He's going to go on and say, well, let's try that out. Let's put this on, okay, and let's see if it fits, okay? The third thing to point out, given that the cherubim imagery of Ezekiel chapter 1, I think we talked about this a little bit. The cherubim imagery in Ezekiel chapter 1 is repurposed in Revelation 4, and it corresponds very nicely to the 4 points of the Babylonian zodiac as astral significance to John's throne description and the 24 elders. And that seems to make some viable sense, okay? Now, that's all. Again, if you go and study the astral stuff, if you read through his commentary, you're going to get all these connections. I'm just giving you some bullet points on this, okay? So now let's go back a little bit more detail with the whole astral approach in Revelation 4. A little bit of ancient astrological talk here. So Egypt and Babylon are both going to factor in here because of some of the terminology and the way they understand things. So what Bruce does is he makes these sort of observations, and he's suggesting the idea that you've got all this stuff to consider from an astral point of view or astral perspective. Maybe we ought to do that, maybe not. Okay, but he's making the, why shouldn't we? Okay, and from there he moves from the textual observations to arguing, and this is his connection, arguing that the elders specifically were decans. Now, what are decans? Great question. Decans are groups of stars that ancient cultures used to mark out specific phases or portions of the night sky. To be more technical, a decan came from the Greek word deca, 10, decalog. Okay, that's kind of where it comes from. Now I'm going to read from this social science commentary real quick. Buckle up. Here we go. It says, as celestial personages, the 24 elders about the central throne of God fit the profile of those truly significant astronomic beings of antiquity, the astral deities known as decans. The word decan, from the Greek deca, meaning 10, is a creation of Hellenistic period to designate the astral deities who dominate every 10 degrees of the circle of the zodiac. Whew. All right. I told you it's going to get a little bit crazy. So here's the decan is a portion of the sky. And by virtue of the terminology, it literally means 10 degrees. Now, in Egypt and Babylon, they had a decan system of 36. 36 times 10 equals 360 degrees. Which is a circle, okay? Makes good sense. In fact, we use this to this day, 360 degrees, okay? So Egypt and Babylon had 36 decans, dividing the sky into 36 sections of 10 degrees for a 360 degree system. Now, the book of Revelation is a product of a later period, specifically the Hellenistic period. And the Hellenistic approach to this differed from the older 36 decan approach. It adopted or it opted in for a number 24. So I think it would be appropriate to read the entire section. I think that we need to kind of read through this entire section um, to get the approach that we're angling for here. Now I'm going to read. This is a long segment. Okay. It's significant, so just bear with me. We're going to read through this together, and as I always say, as we get into this, okay, um, if you want any of this research, you can find me by scanning the code. You can go to the blog. The blog is on this code, this QR code. If you're a part of the Discord server with Answering Adventism through Miles's channel, I'm there. Like, you are welcome to ask me for any of this content if you don't have it or can't find it. I'm happy to provide it for you. What I want to do is that's not really a great. Let me see here. All right, I'm just going to make it full screen for you all, just to make it a little bit easier to read through. This is a long section, and we're just going to read through this section. It's in Bruce's commentary called "Social Science Commentary of the Book of Revelation: The 24 Thrones, or the Decans." Revelation 4, 1 to 11. So here we go. In Revelation 4:4, 24 elders sit enthroned in a circle around the throne of God, dressed in white garments of light, with golden crowns on their heads, while the central throne of God might readily be identified with a constellation, whence the 24 thrones. And what is a throne in this case? To begin, Ptolemy notes that the planets, quote, are said to be in their own chariots or thrones, and the like when they happen to have familiarity in two or more of the aforecited ways, which places in which they are found. For then their power is most increased in effectiveness by the similarity and cooperation of the kindred property of the signs which contain them. That is a quote out of Classical Library Biblos, which is from Ptolemy. Similarly, quote, in the Michigan astrological roll, the thrones are identified with the exaltations, and the depressions of the planets are called their prisons. Upon thrones, the planets have royal power. In their prisons, they are abased and oppose their own powers. In sum, thrones are positions of power in the sky. Now, why 24? Well, as celestial personages, the 24 elders about the central throne of God fit the profile of those truly significant astronomic beings of antiquity. The astral deities known as decans, the word decan from the Greek deca, is a creation of the Hellenistic period to designate the astral deities who dominate every 10 degrees of the circle of the zodiac, hence 36. These deities are far more ancient than the Hellenistic period, deriving from Egypt in pharaonic times. The deities were associated with constellations or single stars. Here they have quote for Sirius, Orion, Chiron, Procyon, and Hydra, rising about 10 days apart along the pathway of the sun and covering some 10 degrees of one of the constellations of the zodiac. As astral deities, the decans exerted tremendous influence on the land below and its inhabitants. Here in Revelation, we have only 24 elders, not 36, but the lower number fits the Hellenistic situation. Further proof of this can be found in the British Museum's Egyptian collection. Wall cases 47 and 49 from the Sheikh, I don't know how to say that, West Thebes, and dating to the early 2nd century CE, contain the lids of the coffins of the Roman Cornelius Polios and of his son Soter, on which 24 decans are duly featured. These lids are painted with a large representation of the sky goddess Nut, or Nut, surrounded by the 12 signs of the zodiac arranged clockwise around her body. On the right are Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. On the left are Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. On the sides of the cover are, to the left, and the 12 decans of the day, and to the right, the 12 decans of the night. Now he goes on and quotes Zagabaro, who says, "We must now come back to the decanal hours. Obviously, these hours determined by the rising of stars on horizons with constant longitudinal difference are neither constant nor either approximately 60 minutes in length. They vary as the oblique ascensions of the corresponding sections of the ecliptic, and are about 45 minutes long, because during each night 18 decans rise and set. Thus 12 decanal hours seem too short to measure time at night. In so arguing, one forgets, however, that each decan has to serve for 10 days as indicator of its hours. If we furthermore require that these hours of the night never should be part of twilight, we get a satisfactory covering of the time of total darkness by means of only 12 decans during 10 consecutive days, especially for the shorter summer nights. Again, for the sake of consistency, a simple scheme which held true for Sirius near the shortest summer nights was extended to all decans and all nights, thus making the number of hours 12 for all seasons of the year. And finally, the symmetry of night and day upon the netherworld suggested a similar division for the day. This parallelism between day and night is still visible in the seasonal hours of classical antiquity. It is only within theoretical astronomy of the Hellenistic period that the Babylonian time reckoning, with its strictly sexagesimal division, combined with the Egyptian norm of 2 times 12 hours, led to the 24 equinoctial hours of 60 minutes each and the constant length. Herodotus records, this is some big words here, this particular point when he writes that, quote, "The knowledge of the sundial and the gnomon and the 12 divisions of the day came to Greece from Babylon, perhaps through Anaxander, who likewise constructed a celestial globe showing distances in terms of the Babylonian sexagesimal system." The point is, by the 5th century BCE, the civilized world from Babylon to Greece knew the 12 lunar months of the 30 days with regular calculations as needed. Then, on the analogy of the year, the day, daylight plus nighttime, was divided into 12 larger double hours and 360 smaller units. And these time units were connected with the circular course of the sun, moon, and the stars in terms of the same procedure. A circle's circumference consisted of the 12 equal double segments and the 360 lesser units. Diodorus of Sicily, writing shortly before the Christian era, observes relative to Babylonian astronomy, quote, "Beyond the circle of the zodiac, they designated 24 other stars, of which one half, they say, are situated in the northern parts and one half in the southern. And of these, those which are visible, they assign to the world of the living, while those which are invisible, they regard as being adjacent to the dead, and so they call them judges of the universe. Interestingly, this passage offers traditional information about 12 beings who will judge the world. Our seer does not play up this feature. On the other hand, note that, quote, the division of the priesthood into 24 courses, each of which did service for 1 week in the Jerusalem from Sabbath to Sabbath, was the system prevailing at the time of Jesus. John saw 24 elders about the celestial throne of God in Revelation. In Revelation, the elders are celestial personages of exalted rank and power, forming a core group about the central throne. They regularly worship God, submitting their crowns to God and participating in celestial songs of praise to God. They are privy to God's cosmic plan and can impart those secrets to prophets. They likewise surround the cosmic Lamb and give their homage to the Lamb and mediate the homage of other beings. The fact that the elders occupy God's inner circle, close to the center of power, likewise indicates their deca-like celestial location. While the explanation of the nature and quality of decans in Hellenistic writing is quite contradictory, one can make some generalization. To begin, the decans are located between the vault of the sky and the zodiacal circle, thus supporting that vault and delimiting the path of the zodiac. While they may be said to accompany the planetary deities who inhabit the same zodiacal domain in the outmost pathway of the universe, they are superior to planetary deities. The reason for this is that decans do not change. They know neither planetary stations nor retrograde movements. Rather, they keep above such change. For the ancients, this was significant. Furthermore, the decans are sovereign astral beings, embracing the whole cosmos in the course of one night and one day, keeping watch over everything. In Revelation, John the decans as 24 elders about the throne of God. In this way, the decans are appropriated into an Israelite-based Jesus group perspective and continue to maintain their previous astronomic dignity. For in previous perceptions, the decans were considered guardians and rescuers of the whole cosmos, at the same rank as the highest of astral deities, beings of power and might, second only to the highest gods. It would seem the elders here, now in henotheistic context, are much the same. In the century after John's visions, however, it seems that Jesus group leaders identified the decans with demons. Thus, in the late Testament of Solomon, which is a Second Temple apocalyptic literature, while the positive nature of decans is recognized, they are largely representative of human affliction and in the control of sky servants such as Michael. Yet these constellational beings are called cosmic regents. Whoo! I need a drink of water. I don't know about you all, but that's a lot. So, I just wanted to read that. I wanted to bring that in. And again, if you want the details, if you want access to some of this, like I've said before, connect with me on my blog. because I'm happy to share this. But I think that much of this stuff could be in play. I think this is, does it all make sense? No. But I think a lot of this can be in play. It's hard to imagine that it's just coincidental or irrelevant or doesn't make any sense to John. It's just hard to imagine that some of this isn't playing a role in the Revelation 4 to 5, imagery. So, in light of the use of astral language and metaphor for divine counsel in biblical thought, generally speaking, particularly in light of Ezekiel's vision and its zodiacal correspondence, okay, it's very clear that there is zodiac imagery in Ezekiel, which remember, John uses that a lot. We've got the cherubim right in there, okay? In light of the astral language metaphor, Ezekiel's vision, it seems best, in my opinion, to include the astral approach alongside the motifs that identify the elders with both supernatural members of the council and glorified beings in the council. This merging of the two, the blurring of the two. What do I mean? I don't see an obvious need. I don't see a reason to try to pick one of these three possibilities. Is it human? Is it supernatural? Is it astral? I don't think it's helpful to pick one of them. The Old Testament council language, remember, it employs this astral terminology, and it suggests a glorified destiny for believers in the council. This already but not yet concept. The New Testament is going to solidify the concept later on. And a passage like, if we go to Daniel chapter 12, verse 3, this is going to merge the ideas in its foreshadowing of events. Check it out. And those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above. That's astral language. And those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Now, by the way, okay, I want you to pay attention here. This language, that's day and night right here. This imagery here is day and night, 12 and 12. Okay, that's what's being pulled on. The grand idea here is that God and his counsel, this is the point. God and his counsel control the flow of history and its destiny in a participatory work. God wants both the celestial, supernatural entities that are on the council, as well as glorified believers that are on the council, to lock arms and to be involved, to participate in the control and flow of history and destiny. And these are the images that communicate that truth. Now, what John's doing, okay, John is doing the same thing Ezekiel's trying to do. It's going to get bad on earth. Okay, this is an apocalypse. Okay, this is the end of days. But who's in control? That's the question. Who's in control? Is our destiny as believers, is our destiny secure? Which, when basically the whole thing is going to explode. Is your destiny secure? Now, I know that some here may freak out at the word secure. Oh, you're talking about once saved, always saved. This security idea. Just stop that nonsense. That's junk, okay? Is your destiny secure because you believe in the sovereignty of God and who he is? Yes, it is. 100%. In fact, on the other side of it, you're going to emerge as glorified children, co-rulers with God. That is the reality of having eternal life. Okay, that is our future reality. And again, I think that John is trying to communicate these ideas using all of this imagery. Okay, so here's the question. What do I think? Who are the 24 elders? Well, I think it's all three: humans, supernatural beings, and astral deities. I think that fits with all of the data points, all of the information that's going on. That if you pay close attention to the text, I think there's a good chance that that's what's happening in the text. Now, we're going to keep going. We're going to move into Revelation chapter 4, verse 5. Okay, I know that we're almost at the hour and a half point. Adrian, I agree. Yes, it is very interesting. I was kind of pointed this direction because of Dr. Heiser. He's going to talk a lot about this stuff in the unseen realm. I have said this before, friends. If you really want to dive into a lot of this, you need to go to his website, drmsh.com. There's all kinds of information in there that you can connect with. But let's just keep going. We've got a few minutes left here for this hour and a half session. Let's dive into Revelation chapter 4, verse 5, which is where we're headed next. So here we go. Let's look at, what does the text say? From the throne came, we read this previously, flashes of lightning and rumblings and peals of thunder, and before the throne were burning 7 torches of fire, which are 7 spirits of God. Now, we need to remember that many of these sections of Revelation are parallel passages to other Old Testament apocalyptic books. John is not just pulling this out of nowhere. Okay. The throne room here in Revelation 4, I've said this before. We see Daniel 7, Ezekiel chapter 1. Okay. Both of those in which we in view in both of those sections, both of these passages portray fire metaphors following the mention of a throne and its occupant. So you have this idea. Okay, we see the connection with when we look at the Septuagint, okay, of Ezekiel 1:13. Let me see if I can get this on the screen. I don't have it connected to. Give me a second. Let's see. I want to look at. All right. Let's see here. I want you to notice in the Septuagint. Okay, this is the Lexham English Septuagint of Ezekiel 1:13. Just kind of notice, and underneath their wings are the 4 parts. There was a hand of a human. There were 4 faces. We notice that we get down here in verse 13, in the middle of the living beings was a appearance like burning charcoal fire, like the appearance of gathered torches. There you go. Between the living beings, and the splendor of the fire and lightning was going forth out of the fire. So there seems to be pretty clear some imagery of what would be considered fiery theophanic descriptions. A theophany is just a place where God shows up in physical form. He kind of shows up to the party, so to speak. And you can see similarities to this if we look at Exodus 19:16 on the morning of the third day. Now remember, Exodus 19, this is right before the giving of the Ten Commandments, okay, which is considered a theophany. On the morning of the third day, there were thunders and lightning and a thick cloud of the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast, so that all the people of the camp trembled. Okay, this is very, very, very clear. Okay, there are similarities going on in the text. Now we should remember all the way back in the beginning of Revelation chapter 1, just as a reminder, remember the study on the lamps that we did early on, Revelation 1. The second half of verse 5. Is that right? I forget the exact verse, okay, but there is a section there that talks about it's built on this pattern after Zechariah 4:2-3 and verses 10. And so we get this interpretation in Revelation 1. Here we go, the 7 golden lampstands, okay, and the description that we see in there. Now, when we talk about, as we just did, we talked about the astral interpretation of the 24 elders. We got a glimpse into the possibility that the lightning and thunder could be tied to the heavens idea. I don't want to just spend a little bit of time on the concept of the storm phenomena here, or I do want to, just briefly, and we're probably, for the sake of time, we may not get through all of this. But David Aune is going to bring this up in his Revelation commentary when he brings up this idea in view of Revelation 4:5, Revelation 8:5, Revelation 11:19, and then also Revelation 16:18. Now, really, really important here. These aren't the same, okay? But I do feel like we need to bring this into light. All right, now I'm going to have to do some digging here because the link is not yet working. So all right, give me just a second and I will, find the exact passage here so that you can see it on the screen. Here we go. All right. Give me a second. My computer is a tad bit slow. All right. So here we go. All right. Several observations can be made about these lists on the earthquake. See comment 8.5 on 8.5. The most frequently occurring pattern, here's the sections that we talked about, with a slight reordering of the remaining passage. This list of, here we go, storm phenomena clearly forms the core of all 4 lists. When he's talking about the lists, he's talking about Revelation 8:5, 4:5, these lists in these passages that are being discussed here. Okay. Avery similar list occurs. A very similar Avery. I totally misread that. A very similar list occurs in Jubilees 2:2, which refers to the creation of, and this is angels of the sounds, thunders, and lightnings. Let me kind of scroll through here. Very similar also is Apocalypse of Abraham Chapter 38, where the last in a series of 10 plagues is described as thunder, voices, destroying earthquakes. I'm just looking how far I want to go down for this reading. All right, I'm going to keep reading here. All right, number 2. The two lists in Revelation 11:19 and Revelation 16:8-21 are virtually identical, though the the storm, okay, this is earthquake, is the word, this is the Greek word for earthquake. In Revelation 11:19 is qualified as great. That is the word, the Greek for it's megas, for great. And the lengthy description of the magnitude and the extent of the earthquake is in Revelation 16:19-20. Interprets the mention of hailstorm and like a great hailstorm. Okay, the effects of which are also described at some length. Number 3 point: the theophanic use of storm phenomena such as lightning, rumblings, and thunder grew out of the narrative of the Sinai theophany in what we already looked at, okay, where 5 phenomena are mentioned: thunder, lightning, a thick cloud, a loud trumpet blast, and an earthquake, essentially repeated. That is in the Targum Aquilus and Exodus 19:16, and then Targum Pseudo Jonathan, which is a Targum of Exodus 19:16. If you don't know what a Targum is, it is a Aramaic on-the-fly translation of the Hebrew text being read in synagogue services. That's what a Targum is, okay? Initially repeated in, this is pseudo Philo, which is a biblical antiquities, and then enormously expanded primarily through the use of seismic disturbances in pseudo Philo, again, another section here in the next antiquity. All right, so that's a lot. Today's session is deep, but the most prominent background for the image, like a sea of glass, like crystal, which is that of Ezekiel chapter 1:22, which is confirmed by the wording, and this is the wording: as the firmament, as the appearance of crystal. Okay, and then by the preceding Ezekiel 1 allusion already observed. Now, the crystal sea forms the floor before God's heavenly throne. In view of the use of sea, and I think this was mentioned 2 sessions ago, I think someone asked a question about the sea, okay? But if you look at the sea that's used elsewhere in the Old Testament as representing evil, okay, you can have like Daniel 7, you can cross-reference Psalm 74, I think it's 12-15, Isaiah 51, 9-11, and then Ezekiel 32:2. Those are all cross references for the sea being used as like this evil thing. There may also be a hint that John sees the chaotic powers of the sea as calmed by the divine sovereignty, which has been expressed through Christ's resurrection. In fact, the sea of glass, like crystal. Let me go to this, and this will be kind of where we land the plane. Revelation 4:6. And before the throne, there was, as it were, a sea of glass like crystal. This may actually be an intentional contrast with the quote, a river of water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne, which is Revelation 22:1. The sea, this is common imagery, cosmic imagery, okay? The sea is understood as a source of satanic evil opposing God's throne. That has been, if the parallel is used here, that has been eliminated and replaced by the river of redemption flowing from the throne, which has its source in the throne. So I think that's a great place to, in my notes here, this is a great place to pause for our next session, which I'm hoping will be tomorrow. If not tomorrow, it will be Sunday, but keep an eye out on the, again, subscribe on the channel, and you will get notification for our next live stream. So again, today was deep. It was very, very deep. It was kind of a lot of rabbit trails, a lot of all kinds of stuff that maybe is new. I hope that it was intriguing. I hope that it would encourage you to dive deep into the actual text. While I have you here, I do want to remind you all of this important event coming up, live Q&A. Just as we exit out of today's conversation, this will be a live Q&A. We are ending our series on Sabbath this coming Monday, our last episode 16. Please do make time for this. This will be April 10. As I have mentioned before, please take the time to fill out this Q&A with your questions. Those will be the first ones that we cover, and then we'll do all the other ones that will just be live questions. And if we don't have a bunch of questions, we will just dialogue together on kind of the most important questions that pop up. So, friends, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for hopefully being entertained this evening. I look forward to the next session. Please, please, please drop a comment. Let us know how we're doing. I hope that this is exciting for you. Continue to deep dive, continue to study. We will pick up next session on the living creatures. We're going to talk about the living creatures, specifically in verse 6, that are around the throne. On each side of the throne are 4 living creatures full of eyes in front and behind, which should definitely get you into Ezekiel imagery. But I'll leave that for next time. So guys, be blessed. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Keep studying, dig deep, spend time with the Lord, and we'll see you next time, okay? God bless.